Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. On the Logistics of Logistics, I talk to experts in logistics and transportation, warehousing, fulfillment, supply chain, and of course, technology. And during these interviews, I'm always the one asking the dumb questions. I ask the dumb questions so you don't have to. Today's topic is supercharging your warehouse using AI vision with my friend Roy Gherman. Roy is the co-founder and CEO of Flymingo, an AI computer vision company specializing in logistics warehousing operations. Flymingo is combining video and data to provide warehousing professionals with a game-changing tool to improve warehouse performance. If you want to supercharge your warehouse using AI vision, please take a listen to my conversation with Roy Gherman. How's it going, Roy?
It's going great. How are you, Joe?
Doing very good, doing very good. Roy, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
Thank you, Joe. I'm Roy Gherman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Flymingo. I'm calling from Israel. I spend most of my time in Atlanta, yet I find myself traveling across the U.S., East and West Coast, and here to Israel, where our R&D is based. And pretty soon, next week, I'll be in Philly at Home Delivery World.
Very nice. Now, Home Delivery World is June 5th and 6th in Philadelphia. Why are you guys going to be there? Well, tell us a little bit of what Flymingo does and why you're going to be at Home Delivery World. I know you were before we hit record, you were talking about it and you're very excited to be there. So tell us quickly what Flymingo does and why you're excited to be at Home Delivery World.
Amazing, Joe. So Fleming, we're a computer vision company for logistics centers. Think about us like visual chat GPT for warehouse operations. Imagine, Joe, that you as a warehouse operation manager could actually monitor every action done in the warehouse and compare it to what you were actually expecting it to be like. And this is exactly what Flamingo does. The system leverages the existing CCTV and footage and to track every action that is done, every task, and alerts in real time when discrepancies occur. At a very high level, what we do, we interlace the CCTV videos with the WMS and run it through our AI engine to generate alerts, insights, and monitor trends about operation and performance and so on. We're super excited about Home Delivery World as well. We'll be revealing our tech there and there's some surprises coming up there. And also I'll be giving a talk about the future warehouse. And yeah, we're super excited. Come meet us out there.
Yep. So I know you said you're revealing your tech, but you are already, I know you just started a few years back, but you are already very successful with some very nice reference customers. I don't know if you can talk about them, but if you can, please do.
We're fortunate enough to be partners with Coca-Cola and others in the bottling industry, Sika, Swiss brand dealing with chemicals for construction, 3PLs, companies in the pharmaceutical industries, and also very fortunate to be backed by some of the biggest names in the industry and investment, such as Amazon and led by Lightspeed, B37, and Giant Ventures. So we're really fortunate.
Wow. That's a very nice start. When we were prepping, I was trying to help myself understand more about what you guys do. And it is relatively new. We've always had cameras, which means we've always had film. But you guys are fortifying that film and connecting it to data. So I might look at film and say, here's the film from my warehouse, and I'm looking. Yep, it's boring. All it is somebody picking stuff up and storing stuff. There's aisles that maybe somebody doesn't go down for an hour or two at a time, right? Maybe it's something that is a little selected SKU. But you guys are taking this film and connecting it to the WMS data. So now I actually can look, when I look at a transaction, I can say, here's that transaction and here's the film. So I can start to, and then not only is it just the film, but it's also using vision AI to say, that is this part, this is this SKU or this bin. Am I correct to say that?
Yeah, you're spot on. Data is super valuable, But to retain the value of data, you assign context to it. And the way the data is most powerful, as far as we're concerned, is when it has that context. And for us, that context is visual. So AI vision, what we do, we interlace those videos with the data that comes from the WMS, and we'll talk about it. But WMS in general are very accurate. They have tons of data, but reality differs from that. Videos are the reality. They're objective. That's it. This is it. This is reality, and that's the data. So when we interlace those two, and when we find discrepancies, then we alert. So some of the use cases, if I can give you some examples about what we do with that, we could be loading dock monitoring, pick and packing tasks, cycle counts, damaged goods, tracking paths, tracking AMRs, conveyor monitoring. So there's multiple use cases that for which we built our product to as an out-of-the-box solution. And we're really excited about it and about cooperating with our partners.
Yep. So I'm going to be a little philosophical here for a moment. So what separates humans from most other animals is we at some point developed language to describe what was happening. And so now today, as we manage our warehouses, we use metrics, KPIs, reports to talk about this is what's happening in my warehouse. But it's almost as right now, you could go out and look at the sunset and then say, you come in and you start to describe to me the sunset. And you go, Joe, I got to tell you, I saw the most beautiful sunset. And you start to describe it. But we both know that no matter how good you are at describing it, that you fell way short of the reality. And it's the same with virtually everything we do. We use numbers and words to describe stuff, but we know that those numbers and words seldom tell the right story or the whole story. But film does, especially the film once I put the data inside of it. And that's what you guys are doing. You're bringing what we're always trying to describe that we always fall short on with our numbers and our words and say, now I'm going to connect those numbers and those words to a video. So now when somebody says, this is the pick, this is how it was done. Was it done properly or not properly? And all the other insights I can gather. So I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You're spot on. That gap between data and reality, that's what we're excited. That's why we get excited every morning and talking to customers. We bridge that gap. That's what we do, and gets us moving.
I love it. I love it. Roy, tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you started Flymingo.
I grew up in Israel. I graduated the diplomacy in strategy from Reichman University. And for the majority of my career, that spans over 25 years, I'm 48. I've been leading and productizing state-of-the-art technology in different industries. I'm 48 years old. I'm married and super proud dad of 3. And before founding Flymingo, I was the VP product of another tech company dealing with UAS traffic management, where I collaborated with top tier enterprises such as Deutsche Telekom and others. And this ultimately led me to founding Flymingo.
And Flymingo didn't start inside the warehouse. It started outside the warehouse. Please explain.
I see you picked on the name. Yeah, Flymingo. So it's a funny story, Joe. We didn't start there. Yeah, we pivoted into this space. We actually started somewhere in COVID 2021 in commercial real estate, like monitoring, using computer vision to monitoring roof condition of commercial real estate, building all these portfolios. And whenever we got to customers and whenever we were working, they were telling us about the problems they had inside the warehouse and told me, hey guys, you're using that computer vision tech to monitor our warehouses and build those portfolios. Why don't you try and use it inside? Because we're encountering all these challenges. Now we're computer vision. We've been in computer vision for ages, and we did some cool stuff in computer vision. And when they started talking about those challenges over and over again, it got us excited, and we were like, okay, We got to look into those warehouses. What the hell is going on here? And we knew some of the challenges. It really got us excited, and eventually led to us talking to leading brands in the industry and pivoting into the space.
Yep. We have plenty of problems. And as we all know, Amazon and others are raising the bar on not only the customer experience. We all know the customer experience is getting better. It's always been good, but it's getting better and better. But also the performance in those warehouses. It's getting very competitive. And if you think you can just half-ass it on the technology front, you're wrong these days. The expectations of the shippers is much higher, that the cost is going to continually get better, but also the expectations from the customers. So we in the logistics and warehousing space have to figure out how do we get better. And one more time describing your solution, we've always had cameras that we use to capture what's going on, but it wasn't smart. It was a dumb video. And what I mean by dumb is nothing was done with it. It was just capturing, hey, we'll capture this data. It's possible, so let's do it. But we weren't able to really leverage it in a way that was useful until you guys came along and said, let's take that, not just have it be camera footage, but actually computer vision. Please explain, or I should say AI vision. What is the difference between just average film and AI vision?
First of all, let me say that this industry is built out of professionals working really hard. And in an effort to try and improve performance and prevent systematic challenges, that they really dived into the visual as well. So they use the cameras to try and deal with stuff. And there's a bunch of great companies out there in the market, apart from us, that try to leverage those videos. What we do in Flymingo that is different, we use the existing cameras without reading barcodes or anything else, and we use it to track and oversee every action and task that is done within that warehouse. So not only that you're seeing those videos, you're also tracking in real time and overseeing all those actions. And now you're able to infuse the WMS data into that, or interlace it, run it through our AI engine, and make sure that you're doing the right stuff the correct way, the most efficient way. And you know that there's a bunch of examples, but there's tons of challenges that we can and are solving today using those visuals. One of them, without mentioning too much names, we've eliminated within 3 months with one of our partners. Within 3 months, we eliminated 90% of their problems, of the friction and mistakes, using those visuals, and help them ramp up employees and coach them. And it's just a whole different ballgame.
There's that old saying, and I think it's a picture's worth 1,000 words. And I'm assuming that a video, especially computer AI vision, is worth 1,000,000.
It's worth 1,000,000. It's a challenge by itself. One of the key differentiators with us is that we analyze videos, and we do it without impacting the warehouse infrastructure, and we do it very smartly and efficiently. And that allows us to deploy a solution, whether you're a small business, medium-sized 3PL, whatever, or a large enterprise, such as our partners at Coca-Cola here. It caters a lot of customers and a lot of and a variety of use cases, a very large variety of solutions out of the box in a very cost-effective way, both for us and for our partners.
I love it. I love it. So while we're prepping, we came up with 4 challenges and things that you can help us with. And again, this is how we supercharge our warehouse using AI vision. So the first one you called the reality gap. What is the reality gap?
So this is something that we call internally the reality gap. I assume that is commonly known outside as well. WMSs are so reliable. They're the backbone of our operation, right? And they have tons of data. Yeah, Joe, I got to ask you, did it ever happen to you that an employee scanned an item, but ended up eventually taking the wrong one or the wrong quantity from a different location. So it happens to everyone, right? And that's the reality gap, because WMS may say scan it from the right location, scan the right quantity, or enter the right quantity, but in reality, something happened. He may have been doing that, and suddenly he miscounted or picked from the wrong location. And that's a reality gap. WMS is accurate, but in reality, something else happened, and we need to understand what. So I'm sure that warehouse operators listening to us will probably agree that quite often their WMS, as accurate as it is, differs from reality. So one of the most common examples that we get hit with is loading docks. So WMS says the order was shipped. The carrier says it got picked from the loading dock, and customer says it wasn't received. Now, many times, especially with the small businesses, top 3PLs will opt not to scan faster, right? But then you have to kind of understand whether they picked it up, whether I masked, he masked, who masked, and kind of work really fast and get to the point that your customer is satisfied. And that really leads to a blame game, right? Whose blame it is. And it's an extremely time consuming process. It's exhausting, it's expensive, and it doesn't always provide the answer or the resolution. So that's that.
I love that. And when you said the WMS, it is an excellent tool, but it's a representation of what happened, right? Something got picked. It's a representation. And as I said earlier, it never can or is expected to have a valid description of what happened. And by the way, even if we had the words to describe it, so much easier to say, here's that transaction. And by the way, here's also the video for that if you want to see how it happened. And so if someone says, oh, that I'm describing it with words or watching on video, give me the video. By the way, we all love Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Why do we love that? It's videos. And not to say I don't love reading or love listening to books or podcasts, but there is something to be said for video. We have been watching things for a long time. Before, my daughter told me this not so long ago. She listens to books, and she said, you absorb more from listening to books. Why? Because reading words is still relatively new for humans. And so our vision, this is our dominant thing. This is what works for us. So I'm not against the WMS is a great tool, but might as well fortify it with some vision AI from Flymingo. Anyway, second point, enough of my blather. Second point, we have a staffing and labor shortage. And you said you guys do a lot of visual-based coaching. Please explain.
Wow, Joe, this is one of those that was a fan of logistics. Like,
Thank you.
like every episode, almost every one of them hits this point, right? Labor shortages, rapid turnovers, like the challenge of the industry, and operation managers having to invest a lot of time and effort in resolving this issue. So imagine you can reduce ramp-up time by provide visual-based coaching or protocol enforcement and help everyone, both employees and empower managers to meet their KPIs. It translates to better income for everybody, right? And efficiency. So let me give you an example that will better explain what visual-based coaching is. We take visual-based coaching, like when we find discrepancies and when we see events that are worth mentioning to customers, we help them using our visuals to enforce SOPs, so standard operation protocols. For example, associates leaving stuff where it shouldn't be, not following packing protocols, which eventually ends up with a damaged product or customer not satisfied receiving it not as it should be, and monitoring handling procedures, etc., etc. So it's one thing to alert in real time, but eventually we want to deal with the systematic problem. And if you have the visuals, one of our partners is leveraging that. How a lot of our partners are leveraging that, but one of them is specifically is using those videos every day before the shift and provides one or two examples to employees to empower them to say, hey, this was the perfect procedure. Look how efficient it is. Take a look at the visual. Look how fast it is done, how accurate it is done. It will save us all time, discussion, and money, and eventually will help you meet your goals, which everybody is interested in. So, visual based coaching.
A lot of times, warehousing workers are given an incentive, a bonus for hitting certain targets. So if you can help them be more productive so they can hit their target, so you can hit their target. But I've said this many times on my podcast is we don't create KPIs or reports for the sake of the report or the KPI. We do it as the starting point for a really good conversation about how do we improve. We're all expected to improve. The nice thing about AI is it actually does improve every day. So you can count on Flymingo gets better every day because the AI gets better every day. But for individuals, the best way is if somebody says, hey, this is how the best operator is doing it. This is how others are doing it. How do we help each one of them become better? If I can show you a video and say, Roy, this is the way Mary's doing it. And you go, oh, okay. I was doing it. Yeah, that's easier. It's a great tool. And by the way, the operations might not have been set up just right. So you might see your operator struggling, and then you say, ooh, we didn't do this right. We're watching operator after operator suffer through this operation. We need to fix it. And your WMS will never tell you that. What it might show is that it might show the numbers degrade over time. But if you can actually watch the video and go, I'm watching my team struggle because we didn't set this operation up correctly, that's invaluable.
And Joe, you're spot on. You mentioned before when we were discussing, you mentioned the go see issue, the go see. And if your WMS says something, and it will say something probably and indicate something, eventually you have to go and see it and you have to look for it. What we're trying to promote here is, hey, there's a visual. If you have the visual and you have the data, all that knowledge is right there at the palm of your hands, and you can do it in multiple sites, multiple times. It simply empowers everybody.
Yes. And I think one of the philosophies of lean is, I think it's Gembi, and there's a longer name for it. The Japanese word isn't so important. I took 2 semesters of Japanese. I hardly remember any of it, but I do know this. I do know a lot of the lean words. But I think the idea behind it is go to the problem. Don't look at the data. Don't sit in the conference room. Get up, walk back there and see what is the problem. And here's the problem. I might be 1 country away. I could be on the other side of the world. I could be 2 states away. Do I want my industrial engineer who's responsible for 10 locations to have to get on a plane to go see every single time? Or do I want to say, hey, you can go and watch a 1-minute clip 30 different times, 30 different operations for the day and see how it's going? And then when he says, oh, nobody's getting this right, maybe we've got to redo this one. Let's go work with the operators to set this up in a way that actually works for them, or do more training, whatever it is. I don't want to get on a plane and stand around at a location all day long waiting for 15 operations that take 1 minute. Better to see the video clip. Here's 15 operations that happened, 15 orders. I watched all 15 in 1 minute apiece from my home. Life is good.
And you can do it of multiple sites, so you can compare between sites. Maybe one of them doesn't have that problem. And you could transfer that learning. You could actually transfer that learning from one site to another.
We're talking about this visual-based coaching. And so it's not just about looking at yesterday's picks and saying, hey, here's where we had some problems, some yesterday's storage, yesterday's picks. It's also about alerting people to potential problems so I can be a little more proactive. Please explain.
So yes, visual-based coaching allows you the freedom to provide real-time alerts and coach in real time, relatively close to the event itself. So imagine the impact. And again, the word is coaching. Imagine the impact that you have when you empower your employees, whether they're operation managers or pickers or whatever position they have, and say, "Hey, look at this. This was done great, but maybe I would do this different." Or, "Hey, take a look at that. Let's be more cautious about that operations." And we talked about examples ranging from associates leaving stuff where they shouldn't be or not following standard operation procedures such as pick packing protocols or monitoring handling procedures. And coaching, visual based coaching, it really connects to the people. It's really in real time, and it also zoom out allows you to look into this procedures of, say, a specific warehouse today in real time or whatever, or yesterday, or any trend that you're looking at, and also compare it to other operations that you may have and transfer learning from one side to the other.
Yep. So, if you're looking for a TMS, please consider my friends at Revenova. Revenova is a cloud based transportation management system built on the Salesforce platform, which means it has a built in CRM and a higher level of security, reliability, and performance. Revenova is used by many of the top 3PLs, brokers, carriers, and shippers because it has all the features. It's multimodal and it comes with lots of premium features like predictive pricing. If you want to learn more, please visit revenova.com. That's REVENOVA.com, or check the show notes for a link to my interview with Mike Horvath, one of the founders of Revenova. So I tell you, I can speak from my experience in automotive. When I started in automotive, every assembly plant was set up differently. So I would work with the big three automotive companies. You go to Chicago, the factory there was different than the one in Atlanta, which is different than the one in Texas. Over time, everybody started realizing, let's set up, even though the minivan is very different from the truck that I make, is very different from the car, you'll notice that the door lines all have a best practice that they set up, and they said, this is the way we're going to run it. And it could be very different. And I use the perfect example is McDonald's, not necessarily the healthiest food, but they are the same wherever you go. I remember being in China a million years ago, and somebody said, this is the highest volume McDonald's in the world. It was in Beijing. And I remember I ate there. It was the same as here. And I was thinking, so McDonald's has figured this out. And I think you're seeing more and more warehousing companies, especially if they're large companies. Like, I know you work with small, medium, large, but if you're a very large company, you can almost be assured their warehouses are set up the same location to location. So you can compare. And I not only compare, I should say, what I've noticed about my podcast is we, for a long time, talked about our systems creating data. I have all this data. And then we started saying, hey, let's see if we can predict the future with this data. So it was using like predictive analytics. And now our expectation is it's going to prevent the problem. I'm not going to talk about the problem that we had last week today. I want to solve next week's problem right now. So I think we're seeing that transition with all of our technologies. And of course, if you're employing AI like you guys are, it's a slam dunk. Because all of us talk about continuous improvement, but AI, it actually does continuously improve.
It really does. It really does.
We talked about 2 points here. We talked about this reality gap, and we talked about this idea of visual-based coaching. Next thing I want to talk is about inventory accuracy and visibility. How does Vision AI and Flymingo help us with that?
So this is a really cool issue. We get hit with that as well a lot. So when a product arrives or when item, whatever arrives into a warehouse, there are multiple touch points between the WMS and that product from the moment it is received, processed, depalletized or whatever, stowed, picked, packed, shipped. So there's multiple touch points with the WMS, right? So it gets scanned, it gets stowed into the location, and the location is all those processes. If these processes or one of them go unmonitored, discrepancies eventually occur. And eventually you end in a vicious loop of a cycle count. You may do inventory counts from one time to another, but if you're really monitoring one product or a set of products, and then you event or a specific customer, then you're constantly cycle counting his inventory of that specific product to make sure that you are actually on top of that and what's the stock level that you have. That activity of cycle counting and trying to maintain that visibility is actually not a productive, it doesn't generate revenue, it's not a productive activity, but you have to do it in order to maintain accuracy, right? So you're trying to maintain that accuracy. So if you're continuously monitoring all your processes from the moment products arrive, received, processed, pick and packed, stowed, pick and packed, shipped, then you're top of things and you don't need to do those cycle counts or counts that often because you know exactly, you have perfect visibility into what is going on, what your stock levels are. Additionally, if you're doing that, you also prevent mistakes from exiting the warehouse and reduce the shortages. So that's a slam dunk.
And if you're talking again, this is the discrepancy between what the warehouse management system says and what the actual count is in the inventory. Also, a lot of times things are put back in the wrong place, right? And so if you say, okay, we're short, we should have 10 bins here, we only have 9. Where did it go? You could go back in the visual record here and say, oh, this is what happened. We now know exactly where we went astray. And if there's a process improvement that you need, do the process improvement. If it's coaching that team member, good. If there's something you can do to solve it so it doesn't happen again, I said before we hit record, when I used to run a little logistics company, I used to always say, I just don't want to make the same mistakes over and over again. It's mistakes happen. Let's just not make the same ones every week. And sometimes we do, but at some point, if we're doing our job as managers and as team members and owners, we should say we put something in place so we can't do it wrong anymore.
Exactly, and that's a great point that you're raising, Joe. Just actually, those are exactly key points. What we're doing in Flymingo, where you cannot only go into the videos and see what happened, but we're actively preventing it from happening as it happens. So if somebody is stowing something in the wrong location or whatever, we'll learn that and you'll know it in real time. And you choose either update your WMS per that location because he had no choice and he overrode the system or whatever, or correct that. So you have a choice how to deal with it in the most efficient way. And you can also use us to feed it back to your systems.
Yep. So I want to talk about the next point here, which is automation. Everybody is buying automation. And I think we have to because we already talked about the labor shortage. So we're using automation, and the expectation anytime we make an investment in automation is that we're going to get a return on that investment. So Roy and Joe go and convince the boss, give us $1 million for this automation, and we guarantee we're going to save $1 million or improve a process, something that validates that we made the right investment. And so, but also, I want to make sure that automation is doing the things I expected it to do and not causing any extra problems. So please explain how Flymingo can help me make sure I'm getting the most from my automation.
Automation is on the rise. It's really cool application, right? Really cool application. And it's where the industry is going. But having said that, there are a few challenges, but two significant ones that we often encounter. One of them, as you know, better than me probably, humans are and will be or continue to be part of the process. To a certain capacity, humans are going to be involved in those processes at some touch points, creating some friction points. So we'll talk about it. The other challenge is that when you're introducing some automated AMR, AGV, whatever automation solution you're looking into your warehouse, it has to coexist with other systems and with other operators and humans and whatever systems that exist there. And all of them have to work together simultaneously. They all generate data and they all have some touch points that eventually some of them create friction. So overseeing that magnitude of data created and that magnitude of activity and handover between different systems and humans involved in a warehouse space that is complex even without it, that creates a challenge and it needs to be orchestrated and there needs to be a one source of truth that can oversee it, process the data, hand it over correctly, and make sure that all those bottlenecks and real codes are ironed out, and make sure that everything flows because these are all different systems trying to work together.
Yeah, and one of the challenges we've had with automation since we started using it is, let's say I have an assembly line that has 10 stops, and that could be how I look at my warehouse as an assembly line. I could use some automation in one location and say, oh, I sped up steps 2, 3, and 4. But I didn't speed up 5, 6, and 7, or 8, 9, and 10. So all I end up with is a whole bunch of extra capacity in 2, 3, 4. So I think we call it the local optimal or local optimum. It's not the system optimal. The idea is for steps 1 through 10 for us to get more throughput, not for 3 steps in that 10 to go faster and have people saying, oh, we can overproduce. And we've seen that in factories. I remember visiting a factory in Asia one time, and you walk to they were making gas tanks, metal gas tanks. And I remember huge stack of gas tanks. I said, what is going on? It was half of them before they welded it. And they said, oh, we've automated this process. And I said, yeah, you just have a ton of excess inventory because the step next behind you wasn't sped up. And it was so this, you sped this up and now all we have is excess inventory, which is excess cost. And that happens in our operations all the time when we use automation. You have to so you have to be very aware of what you're doing. So the problem is if you have different automation systems and they all say, I'm going to improve the process 2, 3, 4, and then somebody else says, I'm doing 8, 9, 10, you need some system, to your point, that has the global view and has all of the data that you can pull from all these different systems and say, we can give you a view of what's working and what's not working, and make sure those automation investments actually produce the results we expect.
And looking at exactly the same as that, we're looking at an order or at what happens in the warehouse, exactly like you. We look at it an assembly line. There's a task, there's an order. It's an assembly line. Something is supposed to happen in one end and translate into something at the other end. And if that doesn't flow, if that doesn't translate into better throughput and efficient throughput, then we will alert on it in real time and monitor the trends there. And that's the power of AI vision when you take it to orchestrate and become a one source of truth of our warehouse.
Yep. And it's, even though we use the analogy that it's like an assembly line, and it's a very difficult assembly line because somebody might be picking 25 or 50 or 100 different products every day. And so I say, oh, it's an assembly line to see how many of these orders the blue sweater can go out every day, but there's only 15 of those, and they were doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So we do have extra complexity built into this assembly line, if we want to call it that. So we need more help. And that's where you guys come in, because you can help me make sure that each one of those separate assembly lines is running to its optimal level. And again, also, every single one of these, I really love the idea that not only do I have the video, but it's infused with what the order was. So it's not just, hey, here's a video of Roy picking. No, this is a video of Roy picking this order.
Exactly. Or that action being done, or that loading dock. And here's what happened, or hey, here's what's happening now, and that's not okay. Or you're about to ship out something that shouldn't leave the warehouse.
Yep. I love it. I told you before, while we were prepping, I told you this, that I had lunch with a friend of mine who owns a transportation company and a warehousing company. And he said to me, he says, Joe, I was in Florida for a few months and I'm able to monitor everything we do so he's looking over reports and financials. And so when we did tour his facility, beautiful facility, but I remember he was surprised to see one of the aisles blocked with goods. And he said, what's going on over here? And his team explained, oh, they were making some changes in the warehouse just to make it more efficient. But he would never really know that remote, right? So while they're trying to create a better way, they were doing that really not using technology. They were using intuition. I think it'd be better if these were all over here and this stuff should be over in this shelf. So anyway, getting back to it, I see this as such a great tool for making us more efficient. Because again, we're being tasked with that. Everybody has an expectation that the cost will continue to go down and that we'll get better and better at this customer experience. We're going to have some better tools because this is a very difficult process for a lot of companies.
Right. And yeah, going back to all the aforementioned challenges, my thoughts on this are that AI vision provides the way forward. If you're trying to improve operations, then there's so much you can do, and you have to introduce new tech and you have to invest in new tech that can really help. And that computer vision has been around for quite a while, and we ourselves have done great stuff with it, some super cool stuff with it, by the way. But vision incorporated with today's AI capabilities, that's a whole different ball game. So
game changer.
it's a game changer, definitely. And you remember that when we talked about like Flymingo being like a visual chat GPT, right, for operations. So now you can understand how interlacing that data with those visuals and not only alerting, but having that AI powered engine behind you can empower everyone in the operations, from the people working at the bottom up to the highest managers. And believe it, with our partners, everybody is connected to the system. Everybody is pulling out of the system whatever they empowers them. Not only the real-time alerts, but also helping them understand their operation and how they want to move forward, because now reality and data are connected.
Yep. I love it. So I am going to summarize the best I can on this topic, and then I want to get your final thoughts. So I'm talking to my friend Roy. We're talking about supercharging your warehouse using AI vision. We always have had cameras in our warehousing locations. What we haven't had is the context for that is a video, but what we really need is video of that actual order. And I need to be able to give that operator more and more information, but I also need to have the record reflect, hey, this is that order. So I can look at all my orders and see how it's going. So we talked about 4 problems that you guys get involved with. Well, number 1 being the reality gap. And that's the reality between the gap, I should say, between what's actually in your warehouse and what's in your WMS. And we all know that can be very different. And also related to that is this idea of blame game and investigating. No one wants to do that. So much easier to have a visual record. And again, our numbers and our reports never are as good as a video. That's the reality of it. So if I compare my numbers and my reporting information with the video, I'm so much further ahead. And then you spoke also about the loading dock where it has so many issues. Somebody says it shipped, someone else says it doesn't ship. Much easier to say, yeah, we'll look. We'll tell you exactly what happened. Second is this whole idea of visual-based coaching where we can look at the operation, see how it's working for one operator, and maybe it's not working for other operators. Maybe we need to change the operation so it's easier. But rather, right now, what we have, again, is this, I sometimes would call it the he said, she said, where the guy who set it up, maybe the industrial engineer, says, oh, that's easy. Everyone can do that. And then you watch operator after operator struggle. And then you talk to the engineer and he says, they're just not following the process, boss. Easier to say, we looked at it and this doesn't seem doable, or if it does seem doable, follow the process. But once I have a video record and I can tie it to orders that went right or went wrong, I have so much more information. Next, we talk about inventory accuracy and visibility. Do you want to constantly be doing inventory manually, or do you want to have a really nice tool that does it for you? And last but not least is automation. We're bringing in all sorts of automations, which we have to, but making sure we get the ROI and making sure that automation all works seamlessly within our locations is key when you have multiple systems. And that's the nature of it. There's no one automation system in a warehouse. There's all sorts of operations. There's the conveyor business versus the robotics business. And we have to be capable of having one view that is the truth. What do you call it? One pane of glass that you can see and say, that's exactly what's happening in my location. By the way, we have so much data that gives us information and insights into potential friction points or bottlenecks. Anyway, enough of my blather. Put a big old bow on this one, Roy Gherman.
Thank you very much, Joe. That was a brilliant summary. My thoughts on this is, again, AI vision allows us to track and oversee every operation as it's done in real time. And I learned that. So not only that you can see everything in retrospective, but today's capabilities allow us to analyze videos as they happen and infuse that data from the WMS. And as it's happening, just very simply understand if there's discrepancies from what was expected or not. So any of those use cases that we mentioned and any of those challenges could be resolved and alerted on the spot. And trends, you don't have to let them snowball into something that it really burdens your operation. You can really monitor them as we move forward. And that's what we are doing at Flymingo.
I love it. So I normally ask people what conferences they're going to, but we already talked about you guys going to Home Delivery World. One more time, I know you guys are my gold sponsor there, right?
Yeah, we are. We're super excited about the Home Delivery World. We're gonna attend it. It's in Philly next week, June 5th and 6th. I'm also a speaker there. I'm gonna hold a session about the future of warehouse. But what really gets me excited is that we'll be exposing our technology there for a really large crowd, and there's some surprises there. And we invite you to come and see and come and try it, which is something crazy that we're doing there.
The nice thing about being in Philadelphia, it is driving distance for a lot of people who are saying, oh, it's already May 27th. How do I get an airplane ticket? If you're from the Midwest or somewhere else, maybe you have to fly, but you can drive from a lot of the places in the Northeast if you're in Philly, if it's in Philly.
Yeah, you can come and meet us. We're always around. We're either in the East Coast, in Atlanta, in the West Coast. Drop into our site, DM us, look us up, or you can simply drop me a note.
I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile, a link to your website, and any other links you and your marketing team give me. I'll put those in the show notes so people can reach out and talk to you. So you should go to Home Delivery World, but if you can't go to Home Delivery World, you can still talk to Roy. And you guys work I know in US and Europe, right?
Yeah, so we're very active across those markets, and we're basically very excited to do business with various different partners. We cater a lot of different verticals because we developed this out of the box solution that again works with a lot of use cases, and it doesn't require training. So it's an out of the box solution, and that fits a lot of the businesses that are involved in or have logistics and warehouses. So that allows us the freedom to work in various markets.
So if somebody's listening and say, Roy, this sounds great. I have warehouse that I need some help. How long does it take to implement this solution at their location?
From the moment we have the access to the cameras, it's 3 weeks. So we don't need to train.
Wow.
We just need to talk to the customer. And once he's ready with his cameras and we're agreed on the KPIs that he's monitoring, then we're all set and good to go. And we're always excited.
I think one of the things I've noticed from talking to so many technologists in the logistics and transportation warehousing space is that we used to have to take a leap of faith with technology where it was like, we'll be implementing for months and months and spending all sorts of money. And then you have to integrate multiple systems. And then you hope that you're getting value. And that was a very daunting and scary proposition. Now, what I'm noticing is so many companies like yours are starting with this idea that we're going to have to get early victories. And if you can integrate in a few weeks and start showing immediate value,
Quick wins.
and with AI, if you like AI in the beginning, you're going to love it in a year.
It's all about the quick wins and how do you turn them into heroes. So let's do it fast. Let's do it quick. Get them insights and alerts as fast as possible. And that creates a lot of trust. And once you see us in action, that creates like this hunger for more and more stuff that they start suddenly realize that they can do. And we're very excited we're happy to discuss all these ideas that partners have and how do they see the future, because eventually you're working in an industry of super professionals have been here for ages. They know their stuff. We're merely trying to help them improve wherever we can, but we want to do it fast and easy for them to focus on their job and empower them to have everything they need from us.
I love what you guys are doing. We've all heard that term, data is the new gold, right? But how we apply that data is really important. And being able to put that data into the video for me, that is gold. And again, I don't think our numbers and our letters, our words are all representation of what happened, but video is a more accurate indication of what we actually did.
Yeah, AI takes it a level up, right? So you're not only introducing the data into the videos, into the visual, now you're also able to leverage AI capabilities to analyze this at massive scales and really understand what goes in and out and where this is going. And that's a whole being like a visual chat GPT for logistics operations.
Yes. You've taken it to a new frontier. I love what you guys are doing. And thank you so much for finally coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much. I love it, Joe. Thank you very much for having us. Big fan.
Thank you for being a big fan. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.